Hey Bethlehem, it's Pastor Kris, and I am standing out on the west lawn at the Minneapolis campus. My office is right over there, and back in May, I was sitting at my desk one day, and as I looked out the window, I noticed that the lawn service was out here and someone was broadcasting seed on the lawn. Turns out that in the winter, we pile all the snow from the parking lot or parking lots onto this lawn, and so by the time the snow finally melts, the grass is looking pretty bad. Well, this year the guy was out spreading seed, and we wondered, will the lawn come back? It reminded me of the parable that we have in today's or this week's story from the Bible. Jesus tells a parable about a sower who goes out to sow seed. Some of the seed lands on the path, and birds come up and eat it. Other seed falls on rocky ground, and it sprouts right away, but it doesn't have depth of soil, so when the sun comes out, it scorches the seed. Other seed lands among the thorns, and when it grows up, the thorns choke it. But other seed lands on good soil, and it produces 100-fold, 60-fold, and 30-fold. And Jesus says, let those who have ears to hear listen. Well, my dad is a farmer, and deep in his bones, he's just wired to plant seeds and to tend them and to harvest the plants at the end of the summer. When I was a kid growing up on the farm, we sometimes had hogs, and out in the field there was a hog hutch that had included a 3-sided shelter for the hogs and then a place where they could go out and walk. Well, we haven't had hogs for a few decades, but there's still this cement slab out in the middle of a field. During the pandemic, my dad got this idea about planting a garden in kind of an unusual place. He went out to the cement slab, the old hog hutch, and he planted a garden of melons and squash by planting in the cracks in the sidewalk. Well, wouldn't you know, there is indeed good, fertile soil underneath that least suspected, least likely place to plant seeds. And in the fall, they had melons and squash galore. It's easy to hear this parable as encouragement to be good soil. But think about it. Does soil ever have a choice to be good soil? We can amend the soil and do things to improve it. But what choice does the soil have? Maybe the parable tells us something about the one who goes out and plants seeds. Maybe the parable tells us about the sower. The farmer knows that the seeds will do best in good soil. And there are all kinds of things that are beyond the farmer's control, like weather. And yet the farmer sows the seeds anyway. Maybe the parable tells us a story about the farmer's extravagance and imagination. The parable of Jesus tells us about a God whose imagination and extravagance is far broader than we could reach ourselves. You know, in so many ways, the world tells us that we're not good enough, or that we don't measure up, or that someone else doesn't measure up. But yet, we hear a story about the farmer who sows seeds extravagantly, believing that some will take root. So this week, here and now, here's a question for you to ponder. Where do you see seeds of God's grace and mercy being planted extravagantly? Where do you see signs of God's love, even in places we wouldn't expect? See you Sunday.